The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It's Monday. It's Monday, here the last Monday in July in 2013. I'm letting you know that you're watching us live. And we are going to be live with you for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. It's Monday, so my lips aren't quite my own yet. Whether you yourself are on the autism spectrum or you're a parent, teacher, practitioner working with someone on the spectrum, we know that there are a lot of things to take into consideration. There's a lot of information. There is support. There is help, but you have to be hooked up to it where you are, and sometimes that can seem overwhelming. So we take this time, 2 hours a day, to get together and share ideas, to bring in experts, to bring in guests, people who have been there, done that, or who have information that we think will be vital and important to you. So that's what we do here on this show. But of course, the entire show is meant to be completely interactive. We want your input. We know that you have information sometimes that nobody else has. That you have, in some cases, you figured out some aspect of what you're doing, and that's something that's beneficial to everybody who's listening. In other areas, you may need support. You may need answers. You may need resources. So we ask that whatever you have going on, write into us, talk to us. There are lots of different ways for you to get a hold of us. Emily's going to show you some of the different ways that you can get a hold of us and ways that you can watch the show. While she does that, I'm going to remind you there's only one way to watch us live. Emily's showing it to you right now, www.autism-live.com. When you go there, you see a lovely website. It's got a computer screen, and if you're watching us on anything other than a tablet, the show plays there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on that computer screen. If you're watching us on a tablet, you're not going to get that right now, although we've got a solution for that for you that I'm going to tell you about in a second. However, first I want to talk about the white box that's empty next to that. That's your box. That's the place where you get to put your cursor, type in whatever you want, hit enter. You don't have to log in. Nobody's going to ask you for a credit card. Nobody asks you for your email. There's nothing that anybody's going to mark it. In fact, we don't know who you are. It's completely anonymous. But you can hit enter. It shows up here on my screen. That box should be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We try to get to those answers when there's the appropriate expert here to talk about it with you. Sometimes you'll write in something for Dr. Doreen. I got to save that till Wednesday when she's with us. If it's a research question, I usually try to answer those with Dr. Tarbox on Friday, and everything in between. So we try to get to those as quickly as we can. But remember that if you're writing in, let's say you're writing in and it's midnight your time, then we may or may not be actually live during that time. So make sure you reference what it is you're seeing that you have the question about. Sometimes you guys will write in and say, that's really cool. Can you send me, information about, but if you ask me to send you something, you've got to put some way to connect with you on that transmission. I can edit it before showing it to other people, but I also need to know which expert you're talking about. We have lots of experts that are she, and if you say she's fascinating, I want to know, I don't know which she you're talking about. So be as specific as you can about what you need and where you want it. And as I said, we won't share your personal information on the show, but we will get back to you if you include some way to get a hold of you. Otherwise, we just answer the question on the show. Does that all make sense? Okay. I mentioned that there is a way that you might be able to watch us live on your tablets coming soon. Right now, so many of you, an overwhelming number of you have written in and said, why can't I watch it on my iPad? Why can't I have to go to YouTube to watch it on my iPad. I've got my Android tablet and I can't see you live. It's really, really frustrating. So Emily, who is amazing, and I always say she's like a cross between MacGyver and Martha Stewart. Give her 2 paper clips and a piece of gum, and she can do anything. She probably could build a building. But Emily did some research and discovered a really easy way that we can start bringing you the live show on your tablets. But it requires your help and support, and for you to do a little bit of work. No money, but a little bit of work. We need for you to subscribe to our YouTube page. Emily's showing it to you right there. When you go there, there's a button, you hit subscribe. You will have to be logged in either to your Google account or to your YouTube account, but subscribe to it. We also want you to share this and let other people know. So, email your friends and say, hey, I need you to subscribe to this so that I can get this important program on my tablet. And it will be free, so it's a great thing, but you have to tell people. Now, a really great thing to do while you're telling people is to go to our Facebook page, and while you're there, like our Facebook page. But if you scroll down a little bit on our Facebook page, you'll see a picture of a bottle of wine, a game that's a box, and Temple Grandin's new book, because we're running a contest. If you will share that post that has that picture and it says subscribe to our YouTube page, all you have to do is share it. You don't have a responsibility to make sure people follow through on it, right? We're taking it easy on you. But if you'll share that post, then you will be entered to win the bottle of wine. It's from One Hope Wine, and they're great advocates. They donate money for autism, and it's a lovely, lovely, beautiful tasting wine and a lovely company. Wine with a purpose. How much do we love that? You will also get the game, Cornered by Endless Games. Great game for everyone, but in particular, our kids on the autism spectrum love it. They're really good at it, and they find it very reinforcing. I've played it with my husband and my son. It's very fun. And you will also get Temple Grandin's new book, The Autistic Brain. So one person is going to win all 3 of those, but you can't be entered to win it unless you share that post on your Facebook page. So we only need a few more subscribers, and we're going to be able to bring this to you live. So we have to get this done this week, all right? While we're promoting things, I'm going to remind you, and I'm going to keep reminding you all throughout the show, we have only 1 week left of the fundraiser that's being done by Paper Clouds Apparel. We had Robert Thornton from Paper Clouds on the show last week. This is an amazing organization that they take artwork that's done by individuals who are on the spectrum or who have Down syndrome or are affected by other things, and they put them on t-shirts, hats, and bags, and they sell them, and 50% of the proceeds goes to an organization to benefit people who have whatever the person who was the artist. In my case, my son has autism, and you guys who watch the show know that, and he did a drawing of a robot, and his robot was chosen. There it is. I'm so proud of my little boy. And so there it is on a t-shirt. There it is on another t-shirt, and you can buy, oh, look at the hats. I haven't seen the pictures of the hats before. They're so cool. And there is his robot, and then you see the guitar and the skull and crossbones. These are done by different kids, and they benefit different organizations. If you buy a hat, a bag, or a t-shirt with my son's robot on it, it will benefit Autism Care and Treatment Today. We talk about them a lot on the show because they're an amazing organization. Nancy Alspaugh Jackson, who co-hosts Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, is the executive director. And I always say to people, you hear about different charities and they donate money and things, and you wonder how much of the money is going to what they say it's going to. And I want you to know that I see who this money goes to, and I see how Nancy conducts that business. And their office is like the size of a postage stamp, and they sit on folding chairs. When I tell you that the money goes to the families, I see it firsthand. And we've seen on the show some of the people that it goes to and how life-changing it is. Autism Care and Treatment Today, you can go to act-today.org to find out more about them. There are 4 different times in the year when they open up their grant process, and anyone can apply for a grant for something that they need, and they don't define it for you. Some great organizations say, we're giving away tablets. Fabulous. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Other organizations say, hey, we're going to help out with dietary stuff. Wonderful. That's absolutely incredible. And there's different grants for medical equipment or for medical testing. Autism Care and Treatment Today lets you decide, that you say, and I've seen the benefit of this, that families say, well, you know what they said for our child, they need a trampoline, or our child needs a fence, or our child needs testing. What is it that your child needs? That's what you get to ask for. Grants up to $5,000, and it's an amazing organization. So buy a t-shirt, buy a hat, buy a bag, and you will have the softest t-shirt you've ever owned in your life. They're made out of bamboo. They're incredible. And you will be supporting the autism community because money will be donated to Autism Care and Treatment Today. So go to Paper Clouds Apparel or go to our Facebook. You can see the different things there, and buy a t-shirt, buy a hat. By the way, if you really love the other designs, I'm all about supporting autism, and that's what we talk about. But there are many wonderful organizations, and there's the guitar, and there's a lovely, they said it's a dinosaur. To me, it looks like a beautiful alligator. And then there's the skull and crossbones with the pink bow. And each one of those benefits a different organization as well. So check out papercloudsapparel.com, and of course, as a proud mama, partial to the robot. In any case, I always like to remind you at the start of the show that I'm not an expert in autism, but that I'm a mom. Clearly, you just heard that. And I hope that in being here, I can support you on this journey, wherever you are in this journey, to get the answers that you want. But make no mistake that I am not an expert in autism. I always like to get that out there. Okay, having said that, though, we're going to go on to the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it. As I said, I'm not an expert in autism, but we give you an actual definition, which I adore making fun of, because the fact that anybody who puts those definitions in a book and then thinks that unless you have a degree in psychology that you're automatically going to be able to figure out what it is really should be beaten. And I'm a passive person. So, but we show it to you to show why we take the time to do the jargon of the day, and then we give you a working definition, which is less specific, but we have to start somewhere, right? And we have to make friends with the jargon. Okay, today we're introducing something that we talk about on the show a lot, but we haven't made a jargon of the day, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, our jargon for today is a 3-term contingent. What you say? Right? What? My child just got diagnosed with autism, and this is the kind of stuff I got to put up with? Yes, it is. Make friends with it. It's not as bad as you think. Okay, so let's have some really good fun at making fun of the actual definition of a 3-term contingent. You ready? And I picked one that was even semi-watered down. Ready? 3-term contingent, a set of functional relationships among distinct classes of antecedent stimuli, responses, and consequent stimuli that together constitute the model of how behavior is influenced by the environment. Can I tell you that there were like 35 different definitions I could have picked, and this one was the easiest to understand? I don't know about you, but when my son was diagnosed with autism and I was looking things up on Google at 3 o'clock in the morning when I finally got him to sleep, if I had come across this, I would have burst into tears and started throwing things. And yet, can I tell you that this much further down the road, as an autism parent, I understand what this means. But let's see if we can't water this down just a little bit more, go to our working definition, which the 3-term contingent, they're the ABCs of behavior. We're talking about antecedent, behavior, consequence. Now, you still might be looking at these 3 things and going, what does this have to do with me and with my kid? Everything. And by the way, it has everything to do with you and your kid, regardless of how old your child is, how affected they are by autism, or if they have autism at all. This has to do with pretty much everything that we all do. Every behavior that anyone, any living organism that is engaged in a behavior follows along this 3-term contingent. It's like the key to the kingdom right here. For everything that we do, there is a before the behavior, a behavior, and a consequence for the behavior. Absolutely everything. I pick up and I take a drink of water. The behavior is the water. The antecedent is the thing that happened before. My mouth was feeling dry. I was feeling, thirsty. I felt bored, so I took a drink of water. I was nervous, so I took a drink of water. Something happened somewhere physically or mentally. Something happened, and it triggered this behavior that I'm going to take a drink of water. And then there's a consequence for every behavior that we do. The consequence of me taking the drink of water may be that I spill it all over myself and I'm embarrassed. It may be that I drink the water and I calm down so I'm not nervous anymore. It may slake my thirst so that I'm not thirsty anymore. I was feeling weak and I took the drink of water and it peps me up. But for every behavior, there is a consequence. And sometimes there's multiple consequences. And sometimes we only pay attention to the ones that feel good or the ones that are really painful. But for every behavior we do, there is that moment before something happens. I know that it seems like sometimes we engage in random behaviors, or that other people engage in random behaviors. And especially when you have a child on the autism spectrum, there are times when you look at the behavior and you go, that's random. It's not. For every behavior that happens, there is something that happened before and there is a consequence afterward. Now, I'm a big fan of being empowered. I want to have power. I don't want to be all powerful, but I'd like to have some control. I'm a bit of a control freak. It took me a really long time and to be working with a child on the autism spectrum for people to get me to understand and believe, and by people I mean experts, that I don't really have control over the behavior. As a mom, I wanted to think that I had control over the behavior, which is, we've all seen this kind of behavior when a child is doing something and somebody says, stop that. Right? As if that works. Stop that. Knock that off. Don't do that. Stop that. Stop that. Right? It doesn't work. And yet we engage in that because we think that we have control over the behavior. What's the game plan when you say stop that? Because what are you going to do next? A lot of times, I can think of one time in particular when my son was around 3 and we were sitting in a doctor's office and he started swinging his leg and kicking the leg of the chair. And what did I do to a child who had virtually no receptive language? I said, stop that. Don't do that. I might as well have said, right? Because he didn't understand what I was saying. So then I move on to the physical thing of I put my hand on his leg very nicely to draw attention to, and I'm like trying to distract him and do these things, but I got my hand on the leg. At some point, though, we have to realize that what are you going to do if he still keeps doing it? You're going to tape him to the chair? You're going to pin him to the floor? We don't have... In and of itself, we don't have a whole lot of control over the behavior. So it feels like a loss, like I don't know what to do. And how many times have we felt or seen another parent who says, I don't know what to do. I can't get him to do anything. I can't get her to listen. I can't get my child to do what I want my child to do, right? And you feel helpless. It's not an empowering thing. But here's the deal. We don't have a lot of control over the behavior, but we have a whole lot of control over the antecedent, and we have even more control over the consequence in a lot of circumstances. Not all, but in a lot of circumstances. So, for instance, the antecedent is what happens before. Now, I don't know necessarily what happened before, but I know if I watch enough of my child's behavior, and I know when we go into a doctor's office, if my child is bored, he's going to start to engage in behavior. And my child is very attention driven. So he's engaging, he's bored. He's got to do something to take away the boredom. So he starts swinging his leg and kicking the chair. Now people are noticing, and mom is noticing, and mom is talking, this is cool. Now I've got something to do and I've got some attention to go with it. I'm going to keep doing this behavior, because the consequence for me for doing this behavior is my boredom is gone and I'm getting a lot of attention. Woohoo! Doesn't matter that it's bad attention, right? My child's loving it. If I know, though, if I strap on my thinking brain and I know we're going into a doctor's office and I know that my child is very attention driven and I know that he gets bored really easily, I can pack a bag. I can get on my antecedent modification head. It means I'm going to change the moment before. I don't have to go back in a time machine. I just have to think a little bit ahead. I pack the bag with different things, and I make sure that I give him attention anytime he's doing something good. And I'm ready before I get there, right? Can't always be ready beforehand, right? But that's okay, because not only do we have control over antecedents, but we miss them from time to time, we also have control over consequences. So for instance, if I've forgotten my bag of goodies and I'm in the doctor's office and my child starts kicking the thing, right? And I go, oh no, I've blown it. Oh, what have I done? I didn't bring a bag of goodies to distract him so that he wouldn't get bored. And now people are starting to look and he's starting to get attention. You make a choice in the moment. And if you know that that behavior is being fed by attention, you decide, okay, I'm not going to give attention for this, but if he pauses at any second, I'm going to distract him with something else. And then as soon as he gets engaged in whatever the other thing is, I am going to shower this child with attention. I'm only going to give attention to the things that I want for him to be engaged in, him or her. And in that way, I can change this behavior. Sitting there and saying, stop it, and trying to hold his leg is not going to change the behavior. But if I distract him, get him involved in something else, and then shower him with that attention that he wanted for doing the something else, that consequence is going to change that behavior. So antecedent behavior consequence, and by the way, this works in absolutely every single circumstance. Once you figure out what's feeding the behavior, you can manipulate the antecedent, you can manipulate the consequence, and in that way you have so much control over the behavior. It's awesome. It requires some thinking. It requires staying calm and looking at it really analytically instead of getting in the emotion of my child's kicking the chair, I'm a horrible parent, look at all the people staring at me, why is my life like this? I mean, that's where my head goes. I don't know about your head. Easy to do that. But the more effective thing is to think, okay, what's happening? What's the behavior? What am I in control of here? Can I change antecedent? Can I change consequence? And usually you can change something, and powerful. That's the 3-term contingent. Okay, we always start out every morning with a question, and we love it when you answer the question on Facebook. We're going to be tuning in a little bit later on to see what you guys have to say about that. Our question today is, when did you first hear about ABA? And I'm going to tack on to that about, what did you hear? What was your first impression? How did you hear about it? What did you think? The first time I heard about ABA, it was just before my son got diagnosed, and somebody said, oh, well, there's this ABA thing that's really effective. I didn't even know what it was, but I remembered it like in the back of my head and thinking it was something for autism. I didn't even know if it was a pill or what it was, but it was probably like 2 days before we went to the appointment where my son was diagnosed with autism. And I hadn't really started investigating it all, but when the doctor said autism, and I there was that moment of, okay, so we really are talking about this. This isn't just in my head. And because we'd gone there to see if there was an autism diagnosis, but it was like I was in Vegas going, come on, give me speech delay. And then she said autism. And I said, okay, so what do we do? And I've shared before on the show that she said, you're going to take him home and enjoy him. Useful. And I said, well, what about that ABA thing I heard somebody talking about? And the doctor said to me, oh, promise me that you won't do that with him. It'll turn him into a robot. Now, I did promise her, and thank goodness I welched on that, because my child is he drew a robot, right? but he's as far from a robot as you can possibly get. That child he hears his own drummer. There is no one that could accuse my child of being at all robotic. It'd be crazy. But my child speaks, my child interacts, and he does that because he had great ABA. So would love to hear from you, though. When did you first hear about it? How did you hear about it? What was your first impression about ABA? We also have a topic of the week every week that we like to share with you. And it's a good week for us. I love this because we're back to ABA basics. We've had a lot of people writing in lately about you just have gotten the diagnosis, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to go, you don't know how to start. And there's a lot of things to do. We had sort of the funding 101 last week, and one of the things we're going to start today and work through the week is ABA 101. So back to basics. I know for some of you, you're like, oh no, there are so many other things I'd like to talk about. But the thing that I am reminded of on a regular basis is how important it is, even all these years later, for me to go back to basics and remember the 3-term contingent. When I get upset with the behavior, there's no point getting upset with the behavior. I need to start looking at what's the 3-term contingent here? What's the antecedent? What happened? What's the behavior? What's the consequence for it? How do I want to change that? How do I want to turn this puppy on its side? Okay, so some of the different things we're going to talk about today. We have a stress tip coming up for you. We have our very special guest, Monica Holloway, back in the studio with us. And then a little bit later, we're hitting ABA 101, delving in, figuring it out, making it work. Because last week our whole thing was making it work. Well, part of this puzzle, it's not the only piece of the puzzle, but part of the puzzle is getting quality ABA. And so we want to talk about what that looks like, what it is, and how you can get started on your own today. I know, it's exciting. You can, though. All right, all of that and more after these messages. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back. For the month of July, I figured we're going to do something again that's more for outdoorsiness since it's summertime and I know your kids are going to be home and you need some activities to do inside and outside. So for July, I figured we'd make a lantern. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are wax paper, an iron, crayons, scissors, popsicle sticks, pencil sharpener, a glue gun, and tape. What I did first is that I have my iron heating on medium heat, okay? Make sure you keep this far away from your child because I won't want them to get hurt. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to take my wax paper and I'm going to make 4 sheets. I'm going to cut out a thing that's about 12 inches long, okay? Now that I have my wax papers cut out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my crayons, and if you have kids around, which I hope you do, I'm going to grab them and have them make some crayon shavings. What the shavings are going to end up doing is making it a design. And again, this is another time for you and your child to talk about colors. You can discuss like what would happen if you mix, some blue crayons and some yellow crayons. What would that produce? When you and your child have finally decided there's enough crayon shavings on your wax paper, what you're going to do next is you're going to take it and fold it in half. Now that I have it folded in half, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an old newspaper and then I'm going to sandwich it in between. And then with my iron on medium heat, I'm just going to have it gently on there just so the wax melts into the paper and becomes one thing. Let's take a peek inside. As you can see, all the crayons have melted into it, making this beautiful kind of like rainbow-ish color. All right, now I'm going to do this with the other 3 that I've made, and then we're going to assemble our beautiful lantern. All right? So here are my 4 finished panels that I'm ready to build into the lantern. So what I'm going to do is I have these popsicle sticks, and I'm going to build them into a square and glue them together with my hot glue gun. While you're building your lantern, it's a good opportunity to work on math skills with your child. You could discuss how many sides does a square have versus how many sides does a cube have. Okay, I'm going to do this another 3 more times, so I have one for every single side. Alright, well, now that I have these 4 different sides built, I am now going to take these wax paper things that I built, and then I'm going to put glue on here and smash it on there, okay? I know the wax paper is way too big for it, but what we're going to do later is trim it. Alright, so now they're all done being glued together. Now I'm going to take my scissors and trim along the outside. Now that the 4 sides are done, I'm going to take some tape and I'm going to line the edge of it so they will stay together to make my cube form. And voila, here's my lantern, but it's missing something. You're right, it's missing a light to illuminate it. So what I'm going to put in here is an LED light. I'm definitely not going to put a real candle or else this thing's going to catch on fire, and that is a real safety hazard, okay? So, here's my little guy, and I'm going to turn it on and let's see what happens. Ooh, look at that. Isn't that pretty nice? And it's not even dark yet. I would love if you shared your pictures of your finished crafts. But until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. Our very special guest in the studio right now, Monica Holloway. I'm grinning ear to ear because it's just always such a treat to have you here.
Thank you. It's a treat for me.
And people should know that you are a critically acclaimed author. You're the author of Cowboy and Wills, an amazing book that people, if you haven't read it already, you need to read it. I'm going to come to your house and make you read it if you haven't read it, because it's a lovely, funny, touching, beautiful, beautiful book. Oh. There is an autism thread through it. And of course, there's a big pet lover thread through it. But really, it's just on its own. It's just a very sweeping love story in many different directions. I'm going to get emotional. I just love that book so much. You've got a new book that's going to be coming out next year. Mm-hmm. And tentative, or is it completely perfect? It's named There Goes Perfect.
It's tentative. I think actually it's going to change because I just talked to my agent, so I have a feeling that title's going to change.
Okay, well, I do love that title. I'll be interested to hear what else.
It might say, I'm so bad at titles that, I'm kind of like, I don't really know what works or doesn't, but, There Goes Perfect seems to be, the theme of life. And I think you got to let go of that if you can, and being a control freak, it's really hard to let go.
Well, I was talking about control freak just a few minutes ago.
I heard.
Hey, we need to catch up with you a little bit because when you were with us 2 weeks ago, you told us about going for jury duty. And yes, and that you had a really particularly horrible situation. You do the sort of the Reader's Digest for people who didn't, and you can catch up on the whole story on our YouTube page, but tell us briefly what happened with the judge when you were going for jury duty.
Right. We had mainstreamed my son Wills, who was 15 at the time, into for the first time he was coming out of a school for kids with disabilities. So he was coming from the Frostig School in Pasadena into his mainstream high school. So it was a difficult time for him, and he was having special therapy, and I was supposed to be with him at noon to help him deal with school, noon to 1:30, and then pick him up at 2:30 so he could have therapy after school with me, and my husband joined us later. But I got called for jury duty. I let them know, wow, my son's starting this new school. Can I do it later? Because my son Wills is good when he's on his own, once he gets used to something, but it was going to be this huge transition.
Transitions, and that's the support that was prescribed, and it was the support that you felt was necessary, and as a parent, we get a say in that.
And as his mother, we have a particular relationship. It's not something that I could throw somebody else in to do with him, for instance, and also, my husband's a writer on The Simpsons, and he really brings the money in that helps us do the therapies, and I don't make that much money, so he's full-time working. It's hard for him to get off, and he did his own jury duty. So I went in. When I tried to move it, I couldn't move it because I had moved it once before, which I understood. And I was happy and willing to do jury duty. It's just that it fell at this really critical time for Wills. So I went in. They said, again, no, I can't postpone it there, which was I understood. So I went in with, I think 60 of us went in to the court, and the judge was there and the lawyers, and he explained that it was going to be a 4 to 6 week, even possibly 8, but he thought 4 to 6 week trial, and I'm like, there is no way I can do that right now.
Yeah.
So he went through everybody, and actually I'm not doing the Reader's Digest, but in a nutshell, I stood up to say, I said, well, I'm happy to serve jury duty, but at this particular time, I have a special needs child and he stopped me, the judge stopped me and said, oh, you have a special child? Because I think we would all agree, and I would would agree that I have a special child too. And then he went on to berate and humiliate me in front of everybody about the fact that my child was so special that I couldn't do jury duty. And I explained to him the transition and that it was the particular time, but that there were in fact families that couldn't leave their children like I could.
Yeah.
And he said he didn't care. I don't care. And we got into it, and I thought, he said, I'm going to hold you in contempt, and I said, please do, because my feeling was, if he held me in contempt, I would get media for that, and then we could educate this judge and society on what's going on. I also thought, thank heavens, my son is improved to a level where I have more confidence than I had when he was little. And I was able to say, look, who are you? I remember my mouth was literally hanging open, and he said, you can close your mouth now. And I said, I'm never going to close my mouth again. I don't think it'll ever shut again. And to go, like you said, you'll hear more details if you go see what I said a couple of weeks ago, and I won't get into it, but it was very cruel, and how he dismissed the autism. And when I said, he said, I'm going to hold you in contempt. And I said, please do. I said, I'm going to be contacting the Los Angeles Times about this. He didn't, in fact, hold me in contempt. And as I walked out, I said, oh, my gosh, what a jerk, really loud. And they still let me go. And so I called a good friend of mine who's also a judge, and I said it's Fred Wapner, Judge Wapner's son, who's also a Judge Wapner, who has a son with a disability who went to school with my son and who's a doll, and we're close to them. And he said, okay, here's who you call, this is who you make your complaint with, and so now we're on that road to making a complaint against this judge, and I really want to make it public. It's definitely in my new book. I'd like to do an article about it sooner than later, because judges can't, it's so frightening to be in jury duty sometimes. I mean, for me, it's nerve-wracking because you want to do a good job and you want to mind the rules, but this was beyond absurd. And I sound really brave maybe when I talked back to him, but I was sobbing. And I was shaking. And even now, it makes me feel, if I thought he was doing this to any other family, it was hard enough for me. But when Wills was small, he was sort of high-end middle of the spectrum, and he had such a hard time. And in that time period, I'm not sure I could have held my own against this judge. And I would say he was shocked, but he also, I think, understood that he had done something terribly wrong, because he didn't hold me in contempt, and I was blatantly furious.
Well, I'm struck by a couple of different things. First of all, the way he reacted when you said special needs is so shocking to me. And then at one point when you said, my child has autism, and he said, I don't care. I think that encapsulates exactly what was going on. I think that was the very truth of the moment, was that you said, this is what's happening, and he said, I don't care. And that is, while it's honest, it's unacceptable in a judge.
Shocking.
Absolutely unacceptable. And again, I'm glad you brought up the thing about the fact that he threatened you with contempt, and then when you said, I will bring media to this, if you do, please do it, that he backed off of that, which, I'm sorry, contempt is contempt. Where is the law? If he felt that you were in contempt, then he should not have felt threatened by the fact that you were going to bring media to it. So, to me, I agree with you. I think that he knew that he had done something wrong, and he didn't want to draw attention to it. And you talked about this on the show. We shared it on YouTube, and you should look at some of the comments that people wrote in, because they were very supportive of you and proud. And, and people have said, this needs to stop. And, I'm
so happy to hear this. I'm so happy to hear this, because this gives me the courage then to take it out more. I'm going to talk to my agent about getting it to the media and figure out how we can get this out.
Absolutely.
This judge has to be called out.
And we had people who wrote in separately, not on the YouTube page, that said things, and we were talking about this with Nancy Alspaugh Jackson, and she and several other people said, they want to encourage you to do a petition on change.org, that we would support you.
Wonderful.
And asking that this judge be disbarred, that this is, or whatever action. I don't know that I understand completely what the actions for judges are, but that, action be taken, that he, what's the word that they say when they reprimand them? I don't know what it is. But in any case, there's a word and I can't come up with it in a moment. But this is actionable, and that we want to support you in this, because I agree with you that if this is how he was treating you when you were standing up to him, right, what would he have done to somebody? I'm just going to guess that he's rolled over other autism parents.
There was no question he felt confident about it.
Yeah.
And I have to say that this took a long, long time. In the beginning, I was like, oh, well, I was trying to be kinder. And then I was like, what? Yeah. And when I got to the point where I was crying and I had snot coming down, and it was not pretty, and it was not sophisticated in any way like it sounds while I'm sitting here. I was a mess, but I was also just yelling. I was not yelling, but I was just clearly devastated. I was devastated that I had to do this, but I also was very clear on the fact that it didn't matter what he did to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't walking out of there. Yeah. And then, surprise, surprise, they dismissed me as a juror. And it didn't matter at that point. I was so devastated, and I was crying because I was mad. I wasn't crying because I was sad. I was sad, but I also was so angry.
Yeah.
And I didn't get anything back from him except the fact that I wasn't, arrested.
Yeah. Well, you know what Oprah calls that? She calls it the ugly cry, when you get into that place where, and you got the ugly cry going on. You got the snot going, and there's nothing.
And people were staring at me. Even the lawyers. I got the lawyers' names and numbers. I got three. I think 3 witnesses' names that were other potential jurors that were in there with me, and numbers, so that when I did the book or I did the article, I could call. Somebody could call them and verify what had happened.
Well, I hope that you'll consider doing the change.
I will absolutely. You have my word. I will do that.
All right.
Yes.
Because I think it's important that we all stand together and stand with you. That not be allowed.
Yes, I was thinking. When an autistic person I started saying autistic parent, when there are autistic parents too, but as a person who has a child with autism goes to jury duty, maybe I could go stand with that person. Like, could I go wait with that person in the waiting room, or is there some support that person might need? I'm not saying that all judges are like this. This was a very particular man who also said my grandchildren are special. So this is a man that has children and grandchildren, and he talks like this to a parent. I can't imagine, but it made me think, he also said, you look very capable.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, you know what that is.
Right.
That is him saying you look like you're dressed nicely.
That's exactly what that means.
This is not going to be a financial hardship for you.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So what if that is the only thing?
Yes, but it does help me that I can financially handle my life. There was a time when I was, not that it matters, but there was a time when I didn't have any money, but luckily I do. But there are people out there that are struggling, and so is that what we also are dealing with here?
Yeah. Well, and also I thought about that a lot, and thought about the fact that if I had been called to jury duty on my worst day of autism, right, I would have made a huge effort to wear my best outfit,
right,
and to look like I respected the court.
Oh, yes.
And then I might be there in a pair of pants that had a hole in them, but I would have made an attempt to hide that, right? And for him to be at that level where he's deciding people's lives, and to not take that into consideration, that you could have walked in wearing the one and only thing you owned. How many times have we all looked at somebody and misjudged what their circumstances were?
Right.
And he was looking at you face value, and he made a snap decision. How is that guy a judge?
Right.
Because that's exactly what we don't need in a powerful position of deciding people's fates. Somebody who, I know it's called a judge, but you're not supposed to judge based on appearances.
Absolutely not. It's unbelievable. And I also found out that his supervisor, and this is, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I won't give names, is gay. So has probably dealt with his own, bias during the years. I don't know, but it's like, wow, who is this guy? And they're really taking action. We've gotten phone calls, and it looks like it's moving forward. So we're not going to stop until it moves forward. We also I talked to my lawyer about it as well. So it's It's got to be public. I agree. I mean, this needs to go public.
Yeah,
and I want
absolutely.
his name out there. Right now, I'm not allowed to use his name.
Okay. All right. But in the change.org, you'll let us know what the name is.
I will, and I will say it was the Santa Monica court system.
Okay. All right. And we'll let you know when the petition is up there so that you can go and
It'll
sign
be
the
up there
petition.
this week. I don't know how soon they can do it, but I'll do it
Okay.
as soon as I can.
Now, part of this journey as an autism parent is educating people, because there is a lot of ignorance, and you have, this is sort of your path right now, is that you keep running against these things where you have to educate people. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and hear about your latest encounter and how you educated somebody. Really impressive, Monica. I just want to be you when I grow up.
It ain't pretty.
Well, but sometimes that's what gets it done. So we'll take a break, and we'll be back, and you can hear Monica's story after these messages.
Shannon, at Act Today, we're always looking for fun, creative ways that the public can help us raise money for those with autism that can't afford treatment and care.
Yeah, and as a matter of fact, right now, Paper Clouds Apparel has a really great promotion that they're doing. They feature limited edition t-shirts that are designed by people who are on the autism spectrum, and they give the proceeds to a wonderful organization. Right now, it goes to benefit Autism Care and Treatment Today.
And guess who that artist is? By none other than your son, Jim. And he has made an adorable robot illustration.
And you can buy the t-shirt, the tote bag, or the hat right now by going to www.papercloudsapparel.com. And as we said, 50% of the proceeds go to Autism Care and Treatment Today. To what kinds of things, Nancy?
It's going to fund treatment like social skills, school tuition, ABA therapy, safety equipment, summer camp tuition. I could go on.
Yes, and she will, too. But in any case, if she just talks about it, it won't happen. You have to go there and get a t-shirt, a hat, or a tote bag. In fact, get all of them.
It's a fun way to raise money for those less fortunate.
We were just showing the spot, and I was saying to Monica, that's my son's robot. And so 50% of the profits it's just one more week, because they're limited editions, one more week. So 50% of the profit goes to Autism Care and Treatment Today for grants for families, for the things that they need.
We got to make sure we do a shout out for you.
Well, thank you.
We will, for sure.
Appreciate
We'll make sure that happens today.
Paper Clouds Apparel, they're just amazing. So we hope you'll go there. And I just want to add one more thing, because you were saying during the break about the emotion of when you were standing there in front of the judge.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to say, because I think it's something that's probably in all of us. I know that it's in every person, but when I was when the judge was berating me and making me feel so stupid, and I was trying to stand up for myself, and I think I did, but inside I was saying to Shannon that I had a lot of shame inside, and I was mad about the shame that I had, and I was thinking, everybody else in here got through it without a scene. Why am I the person that always ends up having a huge scene? And there was some shame involved and embarrassment, and now that it's that I'm looking back on it, and somebody said recently, I was watching a comedian who said the reason we like to think of the past and not the future is because we know what to say in the past.
Yeah.
And when I look back and I think, well, you know what, I shouldn't have had shame. I did have shame, but I still got through it. So, whatever. I think the shame came from the fact that I was, I was being humiliated.
Yeah.
Literally humiliated, and I didn't want to be. And even no matter how much I shoved it back, he was still humiliating me.
Yeah.
So that's how it felt inside.
And you know what, too, if I could just add to that, I think I'm so glad that you shared it, because I think it's been a part of all of our journey that not only have we been given extraordinary circumstances, but there is an expectation from ignorant people in the world who act like it's not as big of a deal as we feel that it is, and minimize it on a regular basis. And I'm sure that everybody can relate. As after you left the studio that day, and I was thinking about right after my son was diagnosed, we were getting on a plane to go to my niece's wedding. This was 8 years ago, I think. And we had our plane tickets, and we were all set to go. And we got to the airport, and I was a little nervous about how am I going to fly with a 3-year-old with autism, and what is this? So I don't fly well to begin with, so nerves. And we'd never gone through the TSA before since 9/11. so, and certainly never with my child. It was nerve-wracking. And we got there, got through everything, and our flight had been canceled. There was a problem with the plane. It had been canceled, and they said, okay, so we'll just refund your ticket, as if the reason why you were going was of no importance to you, right? And I said, no, we need to go. So what's the next flight we can get on? And this was, the wedding was on July 1st, so it was the 4th of July weekend, and they said, well, we can get you there on the 10th. This is like 2 days before the 1st. We can get you on, and I said, no, you don't understand. It's a wedding. We need to get there. We have to go. Sorry, go wait in line, do standby, whatever. We spent 10 hours in the airport before we could get to Denver. We were trying to get to Iowa. We got to Denver, and they had said to us, we'll get you on a connecting flight. There was no connecting flight. Had to wait in line. It was unbelievable. And when I got to the front of the line in Denver, the woman said, I said, look, I need some help because we need to get a flight. And she said, lady, I've heard that from so many people today.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, well, can I just tell you, I have my 3-year-old, and he was in the middle of a meltdown, laying on his back, screaming. And I said, I have a 3-year-old. He has autism. And she said, I don't care.
Oh, my goodness.
And she said, everybody has a story, lady. And yours is no bigger than anybody else's. I just had a man who was here with his mother in a wheelchair. If you think you have problems, you should talk to him. And it was one of those things where I got so upset and had the moment with her and said, that is the most insensitive thing.
Right. Because we don't pull out the autism card for everything. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I've had to say, I'm so sorry, my child has autism. I have to whatever.
Right.
In a big situation like that. It's not like you...
Right, and the fact that she was like, and that she continued and said, there was a guy here with his mother who was in a wheelchair. You think you have problems? And I said, you have no idea what you're talking about. I have compassion for that man and his mother in the chair. I'm not comparing it from one thing to the other, but if somebody says I have this thing going on, you shouldn't minimize it.
Right. Good for you.
But
absolutely.
But, he totally minimized and made it sound as though having a child with autism was no different than his having children and grandchildren. And I think we've all experienced that at some point where somebody just minimizes and then shames you for having said, I have special circumstances, as if you were supposed to swallow this whole and be grateful and happy and say that your life was no different than everybody else's.
Right.
We know that's
and disappear
not the case.
for 4 to 6 weeks while my son, What's he supposed to do without me in those sessions? It doesn't make any sense.
And at some point the judge said to you, just get somebody else to pick him up, right?
Yes, he did. And he goes, well, most people do that. That's what he said. Most people, most people, there are people that can't afford that. There are people that can't afford that. Now, my son, that was a particular situation where he needed me to do it.
Right.
But there are people that, most people can't afford that.
Well, and
that's crazy.
And to say that with a child with autism, you can just send someone else.
That's what
as
killed me.
They're paper cut, because that's ignorance.
Right.
He thinks that you can do that, and you can't.
Right. Right.
So devastating.
But I will say this about it's interesting because it's a constant flux when you're a parent of a child with autism because people minimalize it. But I had an opposite thing happen, and it's just a real quick story. But I go to the Coffee Bean every day on Ventura, and I get a nice vanilla latte, and they're always so good to me in there, and they know me, and I know them, and I never bathed, and they're still nice to me. It's just so great. And I was in there, and I said, I was really early, and they said, you're really early. And I said, I'm going to Disneyland today with 4 teenagers with autism. And I don't know why I added with autism, but I guess I was just feeling like, so feel sorry for me or whatever. And these are great kids.
It's
and
a big feat.
They're great. It's me. It's me that has problems with the crowds and everything. So anyway, I shouldn't have thrown that in, but I did. And then as I was leaving, this young man who helps me all the time in there and is great, he said, he goes, well, I know they all like to get out. And I thought, oh, my gosh. So, of course, I put my coffee down. I go back over. I was like, I have to tell you something. I shouldn't have added, 4 teenagers with autism because it seemed a little, I put it out there. But I have to tell you. And I know you're busy, but I want to talk to you about autism sometime. Yeah. Because in no way are they like to get out. Yeah. That doesn't really go with autism, and I want to talk to you about it. So he was so great. He's like, look, I get off at 10:30, come back, we can sit down and have a conversation. I'm so sorry. And I said, well, I put it out there in a way, in a flip way. And but you're such a great person, and you're young. So if I told you, maybe you could tell other people.
Yes.
And so we did talk, and he was great. He was great. He honestly didn't know.
Yeah.
He didn't know.
But that's I will be honest with you, those kinds of things take the wind out of my sails all the time. Because I go,
was
look at
so
how much more
sad.
work we need to do.
I know. It's exhausting, but you know what? So be it. It's exhausting.
Well, but you're particularly good at that. We're going to take one more break, and then we are going to have Monica tell the story that we promised. No, I love talking to you. Another circumstance where she had to school somebody. She schooled somebody. So,
oh, man.
So
I get schooled, too, sometimes, believe me.
Right, we're all learning, right? All right, so stick with us back after these messages.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Monica Holloway, critically acclaimed author, an amazing autism advocate. You do a lot of speaking engagements around the country, and anytime, I forget to mention this, but anytime that you're getting ready to be someplace, please let us know so we can talk about it.
September's busy. We'll talk about that next time, yeah.
Great. And it's been on your karmic plate lately. That you've had to educate some people, and you had an incident recently, and I want to hear, because I only got to hear a little snippet of it, something that happened with your son, Wills. So tell us.
Well, it was yesterday, so it's easy to talk about. Fresh in my mind. Wills has this great friend. When Wills was in elementary school, he had an aide, a one-on-one aide, and her name is Lynn, and I talk about her in the book. And Lynn's son, Ripley, was in 6th grade when Wills was in kindergarten. Okay. And Lynn was so smart that, Wills couldn't use the public restroom at the school. And it was a very tiny school, but he had to go to the restroom in the office, and that was private. And so she would engage Ripley to help Wills, because she would say to Wills, I'm a girl. I can't go in that, because Wills would say, come in with me. Oh, I'm a girl. I can't go in that restroom. You're going to have to go in with Ripley. Okay. So to have a child helping a child, a 6th grader who's much older than Wills, but who is also a guy, and so Ripley decided that he would have Wills bring his hermit crabs to school on a day off on Saturday morning. And they brought, I think I talked about this in here, but I'll just make it quick, barbecue potato chips, Wills' favorite snack that he wasn't normally eating a ton of potato chips in those days. And so Ripley put the hermit crabs all over the on top of the urinal and on the sink, and he said, you got to go get those hermit crabs and pick those hermit crabs up in there. And Wills was like, I can't, and he was shaking and putting his hands over his ears, and Ripley got him into the boys' room that day. Wow. So Ripley's been with Wills all these years. Now 10 years later, 10. Wills is 16. Ripley's a senior at Vassar this fall. Wow. They're deciding they're going to go to Santa Barbara yesterday, on Amtrak. Okay. And Mom's going to stay home. And he's been with Ripley, Ripley's been with him every summer. Of his whole life. I mean, from kindergarten on, he's had Ripley swim with him or learn to ride a bike, or, that's been Ripley. Ripley's kind of, what we say, cooled him up. Like, he'd be like, Wills.
Can I borrow Ripley?
Yeah, you want Ripley. It's been so lucky.
I need a Ripley.
And he needs a summer job, so, we take care of that. And
There's a career
like
in that.
It is.
Cooling autism kids up.
Our biggest hope is that Ripley's graduate school will correspond with Will's starting undergrad, and he'll be Will's companion at college. That's my biggest hope for the two of them. I don't know if that's Ripley's biggest hope, but he loves Will's. And that's funny because Will's is 6'4", he towers over Ripley now.
Wow.
So we're at the train station. Ripley's not there yet. We're at the train station in Van Nuys yesterday morning. And we go to get the train tickets, and the guy through the window looks at Will's and says, "I need your driver's license." And Will says, "I don't have a driver's license." He goes, "How old are you?" Like really rough. And Will said, "Oh, I just turned 16. He said, "And you don't have a driver's license?" He goes, "Mom, get this kid a driver's license. What are you thinking?" I said, he doesn't have his driver's license yet. So I'll give you my ID. And he said, "Well, you're lucky your mommy's here with you."
Oh.
I said, "Okay, don't make us feel stupid. Just tell us what we need to do to get these tickets so we can get out of here and not talk to you anymore." Because I knew in my mind, I'll take care of this guy once Will's leaves. Because it's a hard thing. I think maybe many of you will understand of whether to say something in front of your child and I choose my battles. Like I often say, you know what? We're dealing with autism here, but now Will says to me, can we not fight that battle in front of me all the time? It's upsetting. And he does. Sometimes he'll say, I'm autistic, okay? I'm doing the best I can. Or I have autism, I'm not sure. Are you making fun of me? So he said things like that, but lately he's not wanted to say that. He doesn't want me to talk about my book at his school. He wants, and so he deserves to tell people at his own, leisure and time, whatever, in his own way. And not have his mommies, but I was mad.
Oh, yeah.
So he said, well, get a state ID at the very least. So I said, okay, stop with the sarcasm and tell me, educate me. He said, get your kid a state ID. I said, can you give me the train ticket and we're not going to talk to you together anymore. So he gave me the train ticket, I gave him my license, and I said, my son just flew to Dallas with his dad and had no problem.
Right.
He said, well, that's really against the law. I said, is it? Is it against the law? Okay. So then we left, and we were outside, and so Wills was really mad. And I said, Wills, I'm going to have to go in and talk to him. He goes, leave him a stern message. I said, it's not going to be a message. It's going to be a face-to-face situation. I said, do you want to come with me and do this now? No, you can do it when I go. So I said, okay. So they got on Ripley arrives. He has to show his ID. I said, go show it without us. We don't want to see this guy anymore. Right. So the guy goes by on a golf cart, and Wills goes, he's even driving angrily, and laughed, because he wasn't. He was ringing his bell. He's ringing a bell angrily. And we were laughing. So it was good that Wills could joke about it, but I could tell both of us were thrown.
Yeah.
So I went back in once the train left, and I said, I need to talk to you. And he said, yes, through the glass. And I said, no, I need you to come out here. And the place was packed. The train station was packed. And it's a very small train station. And I said, listen, I want to tell you, there are kids in the world that look fine, that look tall, that look older than 16, that you think might need a driver's license. Did it ever occur to you that that child might have a disability that keeps them from having a driver's license? He said, no. And I said, okay, good. Just as you didn't educate me about what I needed to do in terms of a state ID or a driver's license, I will kindly educate you about children who have disabilities. My son is going to get his driver's license. It looks like he will, but he doesn't have it yet. He might not even have it a year from now because he has autism. And I said, there are kids that will have their driver's license.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when he turned 16, he wasn't allowed to ride on the train by himself without an ID.
Have known that.
Who knew? So I said, but now I know this. Now, when somebody comes up to your window and says, boy, I'm 16, I don't have a driver's license, what are you going to say? And he actually, his chin started to wiggle a little bit, and he got very teary. And I was really amazed. And he said, I apologize to you. And I apologize to your son. And then I said, thank you. Thank you for that. I said, he's coming back through here. He gets on the train at 4:30 in Santa Barbara. So are you going to be working? And he said, no, but I'll write him a note.
Oh.
So he wrote him a note. I stood there and waited for the note.
Wow.
And I didn't read it. And I waited. And so then Wills called me. In the car, there was already a message. He was like, what did you say? So I called Wills, and I said, it went really well.
Yeah.
There was no yelling. This guy did not understand. And Wills said, it makes me so mad.
Yeah.
Why don't people know? And I said, we just have to keep talking. We just have to keep telling people. So it wasn't a big scene. But I will say, as I walked out, people applauded.
Oh.
They applauded him, I think.
Wow.
I think they applauded him.
Well, it is an amazing thing to admit that you were wrong. You know, and for him to have that realization, you know, and I think that will change that interaction forever.
And I hope that Wills will share that note with other people and share that experience. And because, like with the judge, when I got so mad, and people who know me know I have a really quick temper, and I've worked on it all these years, and it's not that much better. But to be able to talk to somebody and be calm and then have them understand and react back in a very positive way. And but again, it is exhausting. And when I got in the car again, you know, I was very shaken up. I was so shaken that I've been on a little bit of a diet, and I went to Krispy Kreme's in Burbank, which was really out of my way, to get like a cream-filled donut, you know, and I was like, you know, this is terrible that I'm doing this, but I need this donut right now. And I ate it. Part of it was that Wills was going off by himself again, and he's been doing this all summer and just making my stomach hurt and joyful at the same time. Yeah. And part of it was that, you know, it's really upsetting to have these run-ins. It's upsetting.
It is upsetting. It is upsetting, but I think about you're doing good work because you stand up each time, and that saves so many of the rest of us who come behind you, that we're not going to have to stand up and say something to that person.
Well, I think Wills's dignity and my dignity is at stake. All of our dignity is at stake. Yeah. And that's not okay with me. Yeah. And and I mean, I know there are people that can't do confrontation, and I'm so sorry they can't, because by being able to say something back, you feel like, well, you know, I stood my ground. Yeah. And that's the best I can do. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm glad you're on our side.
Oh, my goodness.
We're going to take another break, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to talk just a little bit briefly, if it's okay with you, about ABA, because you have an interesting, different take on, and we've asked people, when was the first time? Oh, is it time for A-Word? Okay, we're going to go to the A-Word first. This is the ongoing documentary where a little boy, do you have time to stay?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Jack Riley was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and he has started his early intensive ABA therapy in the home. He's been getting it for a year now. And take a look at what's happening right now with Jack Riley. This is the A-Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Let's go with Mrs.
That's a great idea.
Let's really build first.
Okay, Mom, what would you like to build?
Let's build a building.
Okay.
Right now, Jessica and Jack Riley are doing constructive play with Legos. What it does is teach a child how to imitate others and construct items out of their imagination.
I need a window. Where's my window?
Jack Riley is building things from his own mind, things that he's been taught before and he's recalling on his own.
Another one.
What is that supposed to be? Is it a camera? Or glasses? Or what is it?
Camera.
It's a camera? A special camera?
Here's my camera. Click, click.
Woo! That's so cool. I also wanted to do functional pretend play too. So with the kitchen set, to see how his conversation skills are. I haven't actually done that in the past couple weeks. What we're really focusing on for that is not just the actions of having him imitate, but rather the narration of it, so that it's more appropriate. Like he can narrate what and tell us what he's doing in relation to what he's playing with, instead of us just modeling it for him. So we'll see.
What do you want to eat?
Can I have corn on the cob and some turkey?
Careful, it's hot. Oh, it's hot.
Blow on it.
Blow on it.
Okay, it looks delicious.
I want to eat anything else.
Yeah, I want dessert now.
Oh, here, give it to her. Here's your dessert, Suzanne.
We need some more fruit. Here's a fruit.
Oh, thank you. That looks delicious. I can't wait to eat it.
It's cold.
It's cold? Oh, good. Don't have to blow on it. Nom, 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 nom.
Do you like it?
Do you like it?
I love it. Thank you. It's a perfect call for a dessert. Nom, 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 nom. Would you like to have some of my fruit that you gave me? Which one would you like to have? Oh, the orange. Delicious.
How did it taste? Look at her.
How'd it taste?
It's
It's good?
I'm eating.
I know.
This is delicious.
Banana. Here's your banana.
Thank you for the banana.
Welcome back. That was the A Word, and I want to remind you that you can be watching that entire series in its entirety on its very own YouTube page. You can watch from the first episode where he was just diagnosed and they were waiting for those services to start, and the frustration of the mom and the dad of, we're waiting, up through, potty training, and he's in school now, has a sibling now, and, so you can watch the entire series, and I encourage you to do that. I think it's a really good representation of how great it can be, the good, the bad, and the ugly of when you're doing that kind of an intervention. Having been through that kind of an intervention, I watch it and there's a catharsis for me. There were things that I was too worried about while they were happening, about what was the next milestone. And now I watch it and it's like reading a good book and rereading it the second time because you know what's going to happen and you get to enjoy it.
Right.
You get to enjoy that everybody's going to be okay without all that fear. So I absolutely adore the A Word. But we're here right now with Monica Holloway, critically acclaimed author. Her book, Cowboy and Wills, a must-read. And you detail in the book about being an autism parent and your child being diagnosed and the choices that you guys made. And our question of the day today was, how did you first hear about ABA? And just before we started talking, you were talking about the fact that you guys didn't do ABA. And I think that it's important that always on this show that and I said this to you during the break, that people tend to think that there are camps in the autism community about there are people who just do this and just do that. And as we talk to parents, it's usually a wider perspective about things that they do. So talk to us a little bit about your journey and the kinds of things that you did do and what you heard about ABA.
Okay. Well, I first heard about ABA, I read about it. Okay. So that's how I heard about it. The therapists did not talk to us about ABA. We found Wills' therapist when he was 18 months old. He saw her for the first time, and he's still with her. So, 15 years later. So I brought up ABA right away because I had read, when you find out your child has autism, the first thing you do, of course, is research. And I don't have any good or bad feelings about ABA. I say what works, do it. Do it a lot. But when she put his team together, she had said, we're not going to do ABA. And I was saying to Shannon in the break, because it's been so many years ago, I don't remember why we didn't do ABA. And I don't know why she didn't want us to do that. But as Shannon pointed out, and because now it's been so long since I've read a lot about it, that we did do ABA techniques, I couldn't suss out from the book and from Wills's past what was ABA and what wasn't, because I'm not that knowledgeable about ABA anymore. And maybe I should be, because I do speak a lot and people will have questions, and it has come up before. But we didn't end up doing that. In fact, do you know about the UCLA program? Are they ABA?
They do a lot of ABA.
Okay, because I know that we were told not to go to UCLA. Absolutely. Without a doubt, we were not to take
But you don't know why. You don't remember what the rationale was for that.
One thing they were worried about, which was interesting, because at 18 months, the therapist did not want to diagnose Wills and didn't want him to be sort of put into one small category, because he was sort of in the middle of the spectrum, or more high functioning. So of course they did he was under the autism spectrum, but they weren't sure where he was on the spectrum.
Right, so it could have been PDD-NOS.
That's what they first diagnosed was, Asperger's came up, but then that was off the table pretty early when his speech didn't come and he wasn't walking. But I know that the UCLA program had to do with them supposedly, and I don't know the UCLA program, and I hate to say anything bad about it, especially if it helps people. That's very, very good. This was 15 years ago. I know that she was worried about how intense the program was, and she didn't want him in that program. So I was such a wreck and reading everything, and I trusted her, and we ended up getting a great team together, and he improved. But if he had not improved under her care, I certainly would have looked into the ABA program at UCLA.
Well, and I think, I agree with you. It's like what works for the child
and the family.
And the family is parents. amount in different circumstances and different. My concern always is that there are so many misconceptions about ABA and ABA techniques and how you use them and when you use them and what they can be used in conjunction with. And that's a myth that I'm always trying to educate people about in terms of, because I had such a negative about ABA when we started out and was told by the developmental pediatrician, promise me you won't do this with this child. And when I think back about, and this was a well-respected developmental pediatrician who'd been working in the field of autism for 50 years. 50 years. In fact, it was the very first day of her retirement that she evaluated Jem. And one of the things she said to me, she said, be happy, because if this were the first day of my practice, I would have told you to institutionalize this child. He was there with me when she said this, and I was like, this child, my loving, sweet, beautiful child. And she said, on my first day, what I would have said to you is institutionalize him and walk away. Right? And I mean, just
who could do that any time in history? With
right. Them? Well,
they did. I know they did.
Well, what I didn't know for many years. Have you read or seen the movie The Valley of the Dolls?
No. Can you believe I haven't? I haven't.
Well, I want to re-see it because I did not know that the reason why she wrote that book was because she was raising money because her child had been diagnosed with autism and they had to put him away in an institution.
I did not know that.
I did not know that either.
I had no idea.
I did not know that either.
All right. That's on our
syllabus. But that was her lifelong thing, is that she was working everything and making money because it was for her kid, and she wanted to be able to get him out of the institution and find something that would help him because he was diagnosed with autism, and she was told, put him in the institution and walk away.
Nothing scares me more than that. Nothing scares me more than that.
I know, I get
both
chills.
As a child myself and having a child. I cannot... I feel chills all over just thinking that anybody would do such a thing.
I know. Or that's what somebody, when she said that to me, and I thought, oh, thank God that I live in the time that I live in, because I would never have institutionalized him. And imagine what society did when you didn't, when the doctor said, oh, you should do this, and you didn't.
Right.
All the pressure that we don't face now. But yes, so, I'm so glad that I didn't keep my promise to this woman.
I say if you have a child with autism, you exhaust every avenue, whatever it is. I don't have anything negative about any of those treatments or any of those therapies in any way, because what I went through is very particular, and what you go through is very particular, and what you are going through is very particular.
Absolutely. But I want people to know that a lot of times when you go online and you go on YouTube and you Google ABA, what you'll see is DTT. Discrete trial training, which is a part of ABA, and that is sort of like that's what people think about when they think about ABA.
And what is that exactly?
Discrete trial training is when you set up a moment in time where you're going to teach just one small thing and you isolate that moment. So if you were going to teach...
That's what I thought ABA was. Exactly.
Well, it's one part of ABA.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of confusion about what ABA looks like. So if you were going to teach anyone a new skill, if I was going to teach you how to knit right here on the show, and the first thing that I was going to do is to teach you how to cast on, I might, we would remove everything else. We would make it so that there's no cameras intruding upon, and I would figure out what was really exciting to you and promise you that we were going to go for a Krispy Kreme afterwards, right? And I would just try to show you the one motion of casting on, and then I would reward you and give you Krispy Kreme every time you would do that.
Okay.
And I've isolated this moment in time.
That's what I thought ABA was. That would be exactly my description if I were uneducated as I am about it.
But see, this is one of the things that I'm constantly trying to make people aware of, and a lot of times you'll see the pictures of the movie, of the film, video, whatever, of somebody sitting across a table from a child, and they'll say, touch red, and the child touches red, and they go, yay, right? That's DTT, and it's a very important component of ABA because it's a way of teaching something when you're introducing the new skill. But if that's all you ever did, that child would be robotic.
Right.
And they would never have that skill, and in a way that was natural
and organic
and whatever. So you would never do ABA with just that. There are, we do ABA techniques all the time. We can be at the swimming pool. And it's just remembering what we talked about earlier, the 3-term contingent, that there's something that happens before there's a behavior and then there's a consequence for it.
And that's been my favorite thing of all time. Ellen Nussbaum, do you know her?
No.
Oh, she has great books. 10 Things Every Autistic Child Wishes You Knew is one of her great books. She's great. But she talks about that. And I read her books not knowing it was ABA, and she may even say it's ABA, and it's been so long since I've read it. But that changed my life with Will's. Exactly what I know. So I can say that this would have helped us enormously.
Yeah. I mean, I had shared this during the break that I said to you, reading your book, because you had it in your mind early on that you just needed to find something big enough to get through to him. And what made sense to you was you were going to go get him a dog.
Animals.
You were going to get him a dog because, and in ABA parlance, what they would say is because that was the reinforcer for him.
Yeah. Oh, well, most definitely.
He was willing to do things that were hard because he wanted that connection with the animal.
Yep.
Well,
that was everything to do with the dog,
which is very ABA. And we were just at an event last Saturday called Saddle Up, and it's therapeutic horses for kids with cerebral palsy, with autism, all these different abilities, and they get on the horses, and somebody stuck a microphone in my face while I was interviewing people, and they said, what's the research on this? And I said, I don't know what the research is on this, but you don't have to be a scientist to see that this gets the kids motivated.
Yes. Yes.
And if they're motivated, that's everything. And there's all kinds of research on that if you motivate a child with something that's particularly motivating to them, you will get results. That's what ABA is. So there are all these different things. And I wish that people didn't have to feel like there are camps about ABA, not ABA. We all engage in ABA on a daily basis. We do.
Clearly.
Yeah, I mean,
clearly,
when you went through the thing with with everything that happened with the guy at the train station, you went and rewarded yourself with a Krispy Kreme. Because these are just principles of behavior. We reward ourselves for things, or we seek a reward. We always do. We want a paycheck for things, and especially if it's hard, we want a paycheck.
Yes, that makes sense, I guess, yes.
In any case, I'm thrilled to hear, though, anybody's story about, because I think that furthers the discussion. And if you were told, we're not doing ABA, I think that's an important thing that people need to hear.
Well, I realize I need to ask questions about it, too, though, because I know so little about it. So people will say, did you do ABA? And I said, well, we didn't, but I know that it's very helpful. But I actually haven't educated myself on it, which I need to.
But I would love for you to go back and talk to your therapist about why, but
let me do that, and we'll talk next time.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to know why she said no. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I don't remember why, because I was so in the moment. Will's had just been diagnosed that day, and I was very freaked out. So I can't remember why.
But he clearly is wonderful.
He's doing really well.
That's a great.
But again, I just encourage every parent to exhaust every avenue. Every avenue.
And the great thing is that the insurance is there for a lot of you for doing the ABA. And
that's huge, because we thought that, yes.
Yeah. And don't think that it's just the DTT. I always say that if you were to talk about your car and say, there are people who say, well, we got DTT. DTT isn't going to get it done. DTT is like the steering wheel of the car that is ABA.
Right.
You want the steering wheel.
You need it.
You wouldn't want to go someplace in your car without the steering wheel, right? But you would never say, well, I'm going to drive my steering wheel to Las Vegas this weekend.
Right.
Because you're not going to get there with just a steering wheel.
Right.
You're just not. So it is a component of it. An important one, but by no means...
Have you ever thought about writing a book, Shannon?
There is a book in the works.
Oh my gosh, because
there is a book in
your
the works.
book would be so great for me.
And there are children's books that my son and I wrote together that we've, at some point.
We need you to write that.
Yeah, on the list of things to do. All right. Well, so it's time, I know, because you need to go get Will's, and we thank you so much for being here. And then we see you again in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Okay. So for those of you, but in the meantime, we're going to hear about the change.org. You'll let us know.
And the petition.
Yes.
It's going to happen right away.
Okay.
Thank you for educating me.
Very cool. Thank you. I get educated every time you hear about how I need to be particular about advocating.
Well, you are. I would say
not enough.
Really?
I'm not getting it done, and I know I need to be better. I just want to check really quick. Yes, no, we're fine. Okay, so thank you so much for being here, and we'll be back with more. We've got a stress tip for you after these messages. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism, my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke, guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some gases?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christy and Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Mariana. We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable, and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back. It is time for our stress tip. One of the things that I want to talk about today is the importance of managing the stress that comes with transitions. And I want to talk about this in terms of us as the parents and as the adults, whether you're on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. And I want to talk about it for kids, whether your kids are on the spectrum or not on the spectrum. Change is stressful. And transitioning from one thing to another thing is stressful. And if we can, there is a school of thought that says if you can manage your states, then you're much more successful and you reduce your stress. I happen to believe that. And I think especially when we're talking about autism, it's going to become paramount that we all at least work at strengthening this muscle of transitioning. And let's start with talking about it with adults and why this is really important, whether you're a parent of a child on the spectrum or you yourself are on the spectrum. We know that in life, things are going to happen and things are going to change, and we have to have a certain amount of flexibility, right? Especially with autism, our expectation of what something is going to be is often not met with what it is. Whether you're the parent and you have an expectation that your child is going to start services on a certain day, or that somebody's going to be at your door to provide therapy, or that your insurance company is going to give you the funding that they said in the form that they would and then they don't, right? Or you're a person who's on the autism spectrum and you did something and the expected response is that somebody else does something and they don't, right? You're going to be met all the time with things that aren't going to go exactly as you planned them. And in order for you to be successful in the moment, you've got to be able to make that transition from what you thought something was going to be to what it actually is. And the speed with which you're able to do that and get back into getting something done is really going to affect how successful you are in the moment. Think about the last time that something happened that was unexpected, that you really didn't plan for, and you had a different plan, you were moving in a direction, and something happened, and how long did it take for you to recover? And there's no judgments here, but there's just about making that time shorter and shorter and shorter. And a trick to being able to do that, first of all, is to say, I had a plan, whether it's you say it in your head or you say it out loud to yourself or to somebody else. I had a plan. My expectation was that this was what's going to happen, but instead this happened. And as a result, I'm feeling X, Y, or Z. There is something about the process about admitting it and going, look, I was doing this, this happened, and now I feel this. Just languaging it even in your head, it's a way of looking at it and going, right, I am entitled to this feeling of frustration, right? Instead of just being mired in the emotion, reminding yourself, no, there was an antecedent, there was a behavior, and now the consequence is that I'm feeling this way. Okay. I tell you that just admitting that that's what's going on is sometimes enough of a breath to be able to move on to another page. Sometimes it isn't. When it isn't, it's really important to be able to include some sort of physicality that allows you to move from one thing to the other. Have you ever experienced yourself or someone else where you feel like they're the old-fashioned records? I'm really dating myself now. The LPs, and you would stick the needle down on it, and sometimes it would stick in a groove. This happens with our CD players now. Sometimes the light, it gets stuck in a scratch or whatever, and it won't move off. That it just keeps repeating. Have you ever felt that way? Where you got angry at somebody and you just couldn't get off that page? It's really important. First, language it. Say, I had an expectation that this was going to happen. This is what happened, and name the emotion. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. I'm hurt. I'm despondent. Whatever it is. And then physically do something. For some people, it can be doing 2 jumping jacks. For other people, it's walking around the block. For somebody, it might mean going and washing their hands or brushing their teeth or taking a shower. But something physically, it's almost as if our body requires it's a reset button, that if we physically move in a direction, and it can be short or it can take a little bit longer depending on you and how you're wired and how big of a deal it is, but it allows you, after you do the physicality, to move on to something else. Okay, so we talked about this for adults, and isn't this great information? Somebody finally explained this to me a couple years ago, and I went, why didn't somebody give me my owner's manual? So that I understood that this is a way to move off of a page when you're stuck thinking about something. But how powerful is this if we know this for our kids too? That if we can transition our kids, even if it's in kindergarten, going from center to center to center, that if we say to them when they're having the emotions about it, right, you expected that you were going to sit here and paint, that didn't happen, and now you're feeling sad or you're mad or you're frustrated, that we can language that for them, and then we need to physically give them something to do. I've mentioned before on the show that my son's kindergarten teacher was the most brilliant person person, the greatest teacher. And I think a lot of kindergarten teachers incorporate some of the techniques that she had, but there were certain things that she did, cues that she gave children, letting them know that a transition was about to happen. And then she had them do something physical during the transition to shake off whatever the thing was. And after they were done with centers, she had a little dance that they would all do on the carpet. Now, obviously, you can do that with kindergartners. You can't as much do it with high school students, or you can't do it with third graders. I actually think it's a little bit easier for high school students because they go to a subject and then they change classes and they walk. And they talk and they do whatever during that time, and then they arrive at the next class and there are cues that start the next thing. It's a little bit harder. I mean, my son's going to start 5th grade and they'll be in a subject and then they go to another subject. And then they go to another subject. And sometimes they'll change classrooms, but it's very rare that they change classrooms before they start a new subject. And if need be, if your child is really struggling and they're included and it's a rough thing, you can build it into their IEP and say, I need for my child, just have him pass out papers. Give him a reason to transition. Give him some sort of physicality to transition from one thing to the other. And if you really can't do that, and the teacher is fighting you about that, and they shouldn't be, give your child some sort of a thing, like tell them to stretch between subjects so that they can hit the refresh button and start over again. It doesn't always have to be just when we're upset. It can be just when we're trying to be productive, doing one thing and going to another thing. I'll tell you, really, when I learned this was when my son was in his early intensive behavioral therapy, and I needed to work from home, and I was writing, and I ghost wrote for other people's blogs. How crazy is that, right? But I would write, and then it would be time for me to come out and interact with my child, but my head would sometimes be finishing the sentence that I was writing, and I would say to people, how do you change that? I need to be present for my kid. How do you change that? And they said, oh, you need to do some sort of exercise, like just do jumping jacks or do squat thrusts or something, do 5 plies, and it refreshes your brain. And it was amazing how effective it was if I just remembered how to do it. Because it's stressful. When your brain is thinking one thing and you're moving on to the next thing, it's stressful. So try it out for yourself. See if you can't refresh, de-stress, and move on to the next thing. And I'd love to hear from you how that works for you and what physicality you came up with that worked for you. So write in and tell us if it ends up working for you. We're going to take a break and try it with your child as well. We're going to take a break and we're going to come back and look at your answers to the question of the day. When did you first hear about ABA? Stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mands, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Every day we ask you guys a question and we enjoy your interaction with us, whether it's on YouTube or mostly on Facebook and some Twitter. I still think that autism and Twitter haven't quite figured each other out, whether it's parents or individuals. It doesn't seem like we have the presence on Twitter that we do on Facebook. I thought it was just me. I'm not as good at Twitter, and I don't find it as reinforcing yet as I do on Facebook, but so many of you have said that it's the same for you, so I think it's a thing, but I'm not sure about that. But in any case, we like to go to our Facebook page from time to time and see and read some of the things that you guys have written into us, and I just made it go away. I don't know why I did that. I don't know why it's doing that for me. We're using new technology now, and I don't know how to make it go up there without me just commenting it on it, Emily. I'm just going to bring it up the way it is. In any case, we are looking right now at your Facebook responses to our question of the day, which was, how did you first hear about ABA? Somebody wrote in and said the day that my son was diagnosed, which is good. I would hope that for everyone, that on the day your child is diagnosed, that it be something you talk about. Another person says, not exactly sure, probably about 6 months or so after he started all of his therapies, developmental, occupational, and speech, I can say this, it was not soon enough. Another person who says, from you on this page before I even had a diagnosis. And I just got done saying I'm not getting the job done, but hopefully somebody else. Oh my goodness, I love this response. Penn State University, 1980. And that is from somebody who is a therapist. A great therapist. Another person who says, I think we heard about it when he was first diagnosed, but it was presented in a way that I felt I would be a bad parent if I were to put him in. Next was through your show. I do think that it's still out there that we're led to believe that it's not good for our children, and yet the research shows that it's effective for all of our kids. Another person who says 2 years ago, not sure what it was at the time, but I watched your show, awesome, and that they fell in love with the idea of ABA. And I know that that's a person who is studying to be a therapist, which makes me very excited. Someone else who says, once we received his diagnosis almost a year ago from Autism Community Network, they informed us about what options for therapy there was for him. This is the direction that we need to get to. Another person who says, from early intervention, even before official diagnosis, have seen high-functioning kids only need it for a couple of years before transition back to regular education. And, thank you for writing that in, because I hope that people see that. This should be our ideal, that people should be hearing about ABA therapy even before they get a diagnosis, from the first time that somebody has a concern. And by the way, they should be hearing about it whether it's autism or something else where the child needs to be caught up. If there are skills that the child isn't learning, or there's challenging behavior that is getting in the way of the child learning something, ABA is the appropriate thing for them to be hearing about. And I love the fact that they also added in that they have seen high-functioning children get autism and be able to transition into regular education within a short period of time. Because I think that a lot of people out there think I know that a lot of people out there think that ABA is only for kids who are profoundly affected with autism, that it isn't effective for kids who are high functioning. That is so untrue. It is a disservice to our kids who are high functioning, and really gets in the way of them getting to the most available progress that they can get to. Now, there's the flip of it, too, that there are people who think that it's only for high-functioning kids or kids who are in the middle, and that kids who are profoundly affected will get no benefit from ABA. And that is also false, 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 false. ABA has been shown to be effective at creating progress for all of our kids on the spectrum, all of them, regardless of their age or their skill level. So one of the reasons why it's an easy thing to talk about is that we know scientifically that it's going to be effective at creating progress. So anyway, I'm thrilled that you guys have written those things in. We're going to continue talking about ABA. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and do ABA 101. We've already covered a little bit of this today, but I really want to drive this puppy home about what ABA is and why it's great for our kids. So stick with us.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Today we're talking a little bit about ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, and this is sort of the ABA 101. Now, I say this with a huge disclaimer on my forehead, like picture an asterisk right here, because I am not an expert in autism and I'm not an expert in ABA. So what I'm going to give you here is the 101 perspective from a parent. Here's what I know about ABA. ABA is an age-old science that was not invented for autism. Okay, so that's the first thing that we need to get on the table. And by the way, ABA is still used in many different applications that don't have to do with autism. Probably a good 50% of the people who do ABA and are board certified behavior analysts don't have anything to do with autism. But there is a growing number of BCBAs that spend their time and do their research about ABA techniques and autism, because it has been found to be very effective at creating progress with all of our kids on the spectrum and adults, by the way. So autism, ABA has been shown to be effective in many different circumstances with many different abilities. For instance, they use ABA in coaching techniques with Olympic athletes, right, who don't have a quote-unquote disability. But it has also been found that autism doesn't prevent results with ABA, and that we do get great results with our kids with autism when we use ABA techniques. Okay, so if I were going to try to water down ABA and consolidate it into one thought, what I always say is rule number one is that in order for any behavior to happen again and again and again, it has to be something that's rewarding. Everything that we all do, and by the way, this goes for adults who are not on the spectrum, adults who are on the spectrum, kids who are on the spectrum, kids who aren't on the spectrum. This goes for your dog. This goes for living organisms. We do things when they are rewarding to us in some way that is meaningful to us personally. And we don't do things over and over again. Things that are habits, behaviors that we do again and again and again, we won't do it unless that component is there. So what does this mean for autism? If we take that rule of thumb and apply it to autism, and then suddenly you realize, okay, all of my child's challenging behavior is there for a reason. It's not random. There is something about whatever is happening in my child's circumstances that is, this behavior is happening for a reason. It could be in reaction to something that's happening, or it could be because there is a consequence that comes with behaving this way that is pleasurable. It is a different way of looking things, I think, than a lot of us are taught growing up and going through school. It really, once you start to look at everything through that filter and going, okay, now wait a second, is that really true? It is a shift, a mental shift of how you think yourself, how you behave yourself, and how you look at other people and how they behave. But if we say principle number one, any behavior that we do over and over and over again has to have some sort of a reward to it, then we have suddenly some power, because if we see a behavior that's happening that we want to happen less, we need to figure out what's the paycheck and cut the paycheck off. Or find a way to give the person that paycheck that they want for a different behavior. Ooh. Okay, so we can take behaviors and eliminate or greatly reduce them by using this principle of there's a paycheck for the behavior. On the flip side, if there's a behavior that we want to see more of, let's say that you want your husband to bring you roses, and this is what you want to make sure happens. There is a way that we can make sure, and we can build up to it so that your husband finds bringing you roses so personally reinforcing that he's going to bring you roses on a regular basis. We know that we can teach these things. So if we can do that with anybody, including kids on the autism spectrum, then we take these principles together, we reduce behaviors that are challenging behavior, and we increase behaviors that we want to see, like learning and making eye contact and being compliant so that you can get work done. Not just being blindly compliant, right? So we talked earlier today as our jargon about the 3-term contingent, that we start to look at behavior as something happens, the behavior happens, and there's a consequence. And if we know that behaviors only continue to happen over and over and over again because they're rewarding somewhere, we look for the reward. We figure out the reward is, and then we change something in the antecedent or something in the consequence. Now, I can't even tell you how many skills and how many challenging behaviors there are out there and the research that's been done so that you don't have to guess, right? You do need to find out what the function of the behavior is. What's the reward? But once you know what the reward is, then you have a bunch of choices of how you're going to combat that behavior, that you're going to... Research shows that with this particular behavior, doing an antecedent modification is the thing that's most effective. And then you can individualize it for the child. Whereas another one, they say, you really can't affect the antecedent, but so research shows that a consequence modification, doing this, that, and while teaching a replacement behavior, this is what's effective. So there's a great deal of research. It is a technique. And in the process of doing that technique, there are lots of different ways that because when we're teaching somebody something, we're not just going to teach it one way, we're going to teach it a bunch of different ways. I was talking earlier about, in ABA, some of the techniques that are used, there's DTT, which is taking the moment outside the moment and teaching it in a very contrived way so that you make sure that the consequence is paired up with the behavior. But there's also NET, which is natural environment training, which you must use in conjunction with the DTT. So you start to teach the skill with DTT, and then you put it in the real environment so that the child begins to be able to do it when there's other things happening, and they still find it rewarding. There's pivotal response training. There's fluency training. There are so many different things that comprise ABA, and it all goes back to this main idea of that in order for any behavior to be happening, it has to be rewarding. So when people say, well, ABA is this very punishment-driven thing, nothing could be further from the truth. You actually, in ABA, avoid doing punishment as much as possible, because if we're all about rewarding the child for doing something, if that's what really gets it done, then punishment, where is punishment in that scenario? There are circumstances in which you will do things where things are taken away, which is considered punishment, but there is no corporal punishment in ABA. It's just this very tried and true method of teaching. By the way, it has been found to be the most effective method of teaching anything to anyone. So when schools are arguing and saying that they don't want to do ABA for our kids with autism, really what we should be saying to all of them is, why don't you want to use it for all of the kids? Why would you be saying we don't do ABA, the thing that is found to be the most effective teaching principle for anyone? Why are you opposed to that? That's really what we should be saying to them. I hope that I haven't just created more questions, although maybe that's good, because ABA is this huge, huge field. There's so much research. Even if we were to take, and I said, they do ABA in lots of different circumstances. And of course, it's a huge field in autism because it is so effective at creating progress for all of our kids. So I hope that you are asking questions, and I hope that you're asking questions of your funding providers and of your doctors and saying, prescribe this, saying to your insurance company, cover it, and that you're getting on the list to start. We did have a question that came in, and I'm going to also address this with Dr. Granpeesheh on Wednesday, but somebody wrote in and said that they are going through the process and they're starting and they're on the waiting list and it's going to take a while for them to start, and what should I do in the meantime? And I promised you earlier that it's possible for everyone to be starting ABA techniques with their child really today. And you don't have to be on a waiting list. Get on the waiting list, because the best possible scenario is that eventually you have people coming to your door who are trained in this, who are going to be awesome, right? But in the meantime, until you can get that person to the door, you don't want to wait. We talk about on the show that you have access to IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training.com. It's ibehavioraltraining.com. So go there, and they have trainings, and you can start for as low as $7.50. Pick the topic that you want to do. So if your child is tantruming, pick something about challenging behavior and just learn about what you need to learn about. And they will give you techniques to start right away. And then, of course, once you're ready to start teaching, then you're ready for skills. And there's a 14-day free trial on skills. So for as low as $7.50, you really could start today. And I would wait until you've got a little bit of IBT before you sign up for the free trial of skills. But even just like one day, I would pause and wait so that you're making the most out of that. But these two things together, you can get started. You might need some support working those two things out to get started today. Feel free to ask. I feel very passionately about every single parent having the empowerment to be able to help their kid as soon as now. And if you need some help and support, please feel free to write in. There are also supports that go with both of those things, but feel free to ask questions here as well. Because our kids deserve to make the progress, and we know that this is a way that you can do it. Science has demonstrated it, and many of us have said that. Okay, we're at the end of the show, and I want to have Emily's going to remind you some of the different ways that you can interact with us here. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by Evelyn Gould from Making Room with Evelyn, where we talk about the emotional side of things. We'll also have a healthy eating tip for you on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeche will be here answering your questions. I really hope that you will take advantage of that. We still have questions left over from last week that I'm excited to get to when she's here, but feel free to write in now. A lot of times now I make the list of the questions that we're going to start out with on Tuesday night, so don't wait until the last minute to ask your question. Then we'll be here on Thursday with Ashley Colas. Great stuff with Ashley. We weren't able to do our report on the backpacks and the pencils last week, so we're going to do it this week. And BCBA Board Certified Behavioralist Angela Persicki will be with us on Thursday. Just a programming note. Then we will be off the air with live shows. The tape shows will continue, but we won't be back until the following Thursday. So we're gonna let Emily have some time off. I know, what were we thinking? But Emily deserves some time off, and we really can't do the show without her. So we're going to be out and about filming some really cool things, Suzanne and I. But we're gonna let Emily have a few minutes off. But definitely take advantage of our experts this week. We're really looking forward to all the things that we have to talk about with you this week, and we're going to continue to talk about ABA along with everything else. So I hope you'll participate. Tomorrow we're going to be back 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. to noon Pacific Time. I hope you'll do the math for whatever time zone that you're in. Until then, I hope that you will please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.